Hi, my name is Tim. Uh, I'm here to talk about today about how to make any type of martial arts work for you um, in a live competition or street fight. So, this understanding comes down to what we kind of teach is EBCA, and that's experience based conceptual applications. What this just really means is that anything that we use or try is going to be done through trial by fire, per se. So it doesn't mean that nothing ever works. Just it's just trying to find a good development plan for certain techniques to be able to use and how to develop them properly to be able to use them in live situations. And then what I mean live situations is that you're going against somebody who's going to deliberately stop those techniques, and you have to figure out why they're punching you, how to make them apply properly. And this is what I'm talking about. So, giving this being the understanding is when we go into two different environments, and this just depends on what we're training for versus what's going to be for, like, say, an arena type understanding versus a street type of understanding. There is a dividing line between these two. What this means is you've got to understand an arena type setting that you have rules and regulations to keep people safe. You're going to be padded up. You're going to have a ref there. You're going to have your corner. There's a lot of sanctions that you got to go through. There's just a bunch of stuff that has to develop and understand, and you have time to prep and get ready for it. But versus if you're out with your family, or you're in a bathroom stall, or in between two parked cars, or at a party, that environment develops and escalates a lot differently between the two. And understanding that you need to kind of train in both, or finding out exactly what your direction is so you can concentrate on one more than the other. It doesn't mean that both sides doesn't cross over and can help each other out. It's just understanding that if you've never punched somebody when it's been freezing cold outside and your hands are frozen, and you crack somebody in the top of the skull at their forehead, it feels like your hand's going to explode because you hit them so hard and it's so cold outside. Your hand feels like it's going to shatter. Palm strikes sometimes could be a lot better in that situation because, man, it hurts a lot when you do that. So this is kind of that understanding of how we have to break up or divide them too, and that's why certain techniques will work in certain different areas versus others kind of won't. A round kick in a bathroom stall, that doesn't happen. Versus if you have a big, more open area, out like in a public parking lot where there's no cars or nothing too much around, where you can have a lot more freedom of moving, that could develop and work for you in your favor. That's the understanding of it. How do we get to this point to be able to do this safely? So coming into a situation is understanding that having a coach or somebody that you're training with, taking it from the very ground level. You don't put a child on a 10-speed bike and expect a 3-year-old to be able to do a 10-speed bike. The size of the bike and sure and everything else, and not knowing how to ride would end up hurting the child, of course. Probably a bad example, but you get my drift. So what we have to do in the very beginning is what I like to do is that I'll do 3 rounds. They're usually about 2 minutes a round with a 1 minute rest. Sometimes my guys will say I only do 30 seconds, but it's probably true. And then the first round is I will mainly just cover, and they'll have the boxing gloves on, and I'll open up positions. I'll open up my ribs, I'll open up the midsection of my chest, I'll open my face up, and they have to go after me, and they have to hit those openings. I got to see, and I won't tell them that I'm doing this, and they have to kind of break down the walls of what society has told them not to punch somebody in the face. So most of my response during this range is that I'll get guys that tire out within like the first 15 to 20 seconds. They try to go balls deep and full on hit as hard as they possibly can. Most of the people, when I give them and I put my head out for them to try to catch me in my jawline, most people can't do it, or they chuckle or they giggle because it's something that's kind of hard to do. They have to have an anger development behind them to be able to unleash some of that, primal instinct to be able to be aggressive. So I'm gauging a lot of this stuff in the very beginning. Second round is going to be mainly now I'm going to do a lot of parry, clinch work, work in the distance, hitting a lot of angles, being a harder target, and giving still shots for them to be able to clip me with, but really making them have to work and think against an opponent who's trying not to get hit. By this time, they're already winded. They haven't had a lot of recovery time, and so they get exhausted and tired extremely quick. And so it gives a realization to a person that, fighting or being in this kind of thing, that they're holding their breath, they're trying to go as hard as they can, they're not calm. It's to bring that realization of reality into the situation so we can have a fundamental ground spot to be able to develop some certain tools for them to be able to get that accomplished inside of whatever arena they may happen to go on that kind of development. The third round now, what this is going to be doing is now I'm going to be striking back. And what I mean by when I'm striking back, it means literally that I'll go quick or I'll go slow, but when I go to making contact with the person, is that now I am just going to feather touch. So when I come through, I'll snap, but then I lighten everything up right at that last little bit. And then when it hits, it is super, super light. So they flinch, they have a reaction. And then now that development plus them holding their breath, they're trying to use their strength. And now that they're holding their breath when they're trying to brace for impact, their cardio drops in a second. And by this time, it's in the third round, and nobody's really conditioned this way. So when we have this ground fundamental principle being developed of how that body is going to respond underneath stress, this is our ground point to be able to develop through here. So then they'll go through rounds after rounds after rounds after rounds. Some of the students who are with me in one given week, that they can probably do between 30 to 40 rounds in a week. And they have to be with a student that knows how to play a very, very light, can take and roll with punches, and try to get the other person to be able to get themselves developed in that way, to be able, if I say stay in the pocket, they can face each other and know how to defend and strike simultaneously or in a 1-2 time frame. And to be able, it doesn't matter if it looks perfect or not, I'm not looking for that. It's just that, can they play back and forth like if you were doing jiu-jitsu with a jelly roll on the ground? Can they do that with their strikes? And then we will start developing more range awareness to this. But in the beginning, 6 months or so, if they're going 3 times a week, that development during that time is pretty much all it is going to be is this: they're going to show up and spar. And they're going to spar in a way that it's going to be, they got to try to get at least 3 to 6 rounds, try to shoot for 10. It's usually 3 minutes a round with a 20 to 30 second rest, and really getting that body into this kind of development. Once this has happened, then adding certain techniques, doesn't matter from what kind of system that it comes from, it's easier to develop that when the student has a fundamental foundation of how their body is going to operate in a stressful situation, of what they have mentally put together. Their body's going to respond. If they have quirks inside them that hurt, they will adapt to that. So to refine, say if it's a jab and they're flicking the elbow out versus maybe we want to pull the elbow in to snap, that adjustment's easier because they have experience behind it to be able to adjust it, versus just having them do something arbitrarily to do, and they don't have a experience to connect what they're doing together with that development of tool. So with all that being said, sorry that the video is almost 10 minutes long, but with that being said, this is our ground fundamental on how to make any martial arts system be able to be applied properly and used inside of any situation that you kind of occur or come across, is how to develop those two properly instead of just doing a repetitive motion all the time. You need to develop the experience with the tool at a ground level, doing it like on a crawl versus a run type area, and be safe but challenging enough where the person still has to respond like they would normally, but they feel that they can still develop any type of tools or feel how their body's going to move without having the threat of getting the shit beat out of them. All right. I'll do another one about maybe more techniques or how we go through the next stage, how we get to the next stage with certain things. Um, Also, I'll pick a different technique, or it's even maybe a technique of from a different system that I don't know nothing about, and show how I would try to develop it and use it for my own personal gain in any situation. Again, my name is Tim for EBCA. Just trying to give a little bit light. If it helps out, cool. If it doesn't, uh, sorry. Maybe hopefully something you picked up from the video. All right. Thank you.